Hi and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to keep making these videos where I talk about different aspects of the Afghan allies situation. To read a couple of excerpts from two different articles that talk about the current situation of many Afghans who are stranded in Mexico, and also give an update about what I've been doing and what I'm going to be doing next week, and also give an update about some of our Afghan allies who were released into the United States. They're now in Sacramento, California, and I did an interview with one of those gentlemen. You can check it out on my channel, and I've been talking to him recently. I'll just give that update first because it's quick. There are many Afghan allies who are in Sacramento and they are currently unsheltered, or as some people call homeless, and there are at least two families there with children who are living in the streets. It's completely unacceptable that these Afghan allies would be in this situation, and they are in the situation that they're in because of their work with the United States, and they have helped the United States in Afghanistan during the 20 years war. This is the longest war in the United States history, and so we definitely owe our Afghan allies more than homelessness, in my opinion. Okay, so my personal update is that I'm gonna go to DC again next week. I have a meeting with Senator Sinema and hopefully others while I'm there. It's the AAA, or Afghan Adjustment Act, Advocacy Days. Unbeknownst to me, the meetings were to be virtual, although the original email said in person. And as soon as I read in person, I booked my flight and I booked my Airbnb to be in DC for that week for meetings. And a couple of weeks later, they said, oh no, all the meetings are virtual. So I sent out some emails to schedule my own meetings because I couldn't cancel that flight and that Airbnb. So I think it's better to be there in person anyway. And I really look forward to meeting with Senator Sinema again. She's been so supportive of our mission, and we'll just see who we can meet with, who I can meet with while I'm there in DC. And I'm very excited to be able to go to a restaurant that I learned about last time that I didn't make it to, called Lapis. So we're gonna do a video from that restaurant while I'm there in DC. There's an article from the Guardian. I'm going to read just a few quotes from this article. It's by James Frederick. The article is called "All the Doors Are Closed to Afghans, from Fall of Kabul to Limbo in Mexico." When the Taliban stormed Kabul, Wali Madikik, of 54 years old, began calling every American, Briton, and European with whom he had worked on environmental projects, pleading for help to evacuate him and his family. The message I received back was, "You're not our direct employee, so we cannot help you," he said. "But I brought them in, I took them around, I helped them work in Afghanistan." He was an environmental activist and therefore became an enemy of the Taliban. So his life was at risk for his work with the United States. The needs of refugees from Afghanistan far exceed the US evacuation response that happened. So that's a good and interesting point, that many people were evacuated, but after the evacuation, there were many people who still needed to leave. Their lives were being threatened. They were being threatened with torture, death of their families, and they needed to leave to save their lives. So what was the option for them to leave? It says there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands, who need protection. Protection was not provided by the evacuation. Many people had taken the extremely dangerous journey from Brazil up towards the Mexico-United States border. And the man mentioned at the beginning of the article has tried to make an appointment through the CBP-1 app. The article says, the CBP-1 is a heavily criticized mobile app, which is the way people must now book an appointment to request asylum in the US. Every morning he wakes up and tries his chances at one of 750 daily slots, and he's been unsuccessful since January. He says, somehow all the doors are closed to Afghans. I don't know why. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you see the Ukrainian crisis and all the doors and borders are open to Ukrainians. That's not the case for Afghans. So I believe in being able to seek asylum in the United States. It's an important part of the United States to allow people to seek asylum. Everybody has equal right to protection and safety, but Afghans worked and risked their lives to help the United States, and the same can't be said for many other people who are seeking asylum. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but in my opinion, the Afghans who risked their lives to help the United States should help them in return. And as promised, they should do that. The United States offered protection, specifically saying, we will help you and we will protect you if you help us. And how are we keeping that promise if we're not even allowing our Afghan allies to come into the United States? And if we're allowing our allies to come into the United States and be homeless with their children? That's disgusting and shameful. This article is from the Times Magazine, and it is from May 21st, 2023. It's by Julie Turkowitz, and the name of the article is "The US Left Them Behind. They Crossed a Jungle to Get Here Anyway." For thousands of Afghans, the American withdrawal from Kabul was just the beginning of a long, dangerous search for safety. Taiba was being hunted by the men she had put behind bars. The death threats came as the Americans withdrew from Afghanistan and the Taliban marched across her country. She said, in the chaos, cell doors were flung open, freeing the rapists and abusers she had helped send to prison. Quote, "We will find you," the callers growled. "We will kill you." So this woman's story is similar to many others that I've heard, that this is an Afghan ally because maybe she didn't work for the United States government, maybe she wasn't in the military, but there are many female judges, female educators, worked with the United States, and because of that, as Kabul fell and Afghanistan was taken control by the Taliban again, the Taliban wanted to hunt and kill these people. So they decided to come to Brazil and walk and take boats and small planes all the way up to the border. It says now, after more than 16,000 miles, Taiba and her family had finally reached it, the American border. Sounds great, but it's not that great. Quote, "The failure is happening right now. Thousands tried for Europe, climbing into cargo trucks or taking flimsy boats across the Mediterranean Sea. At least 1,250 Afghan migrants have died trying to find refuge since the American withdrawal," says the United Nations. More than 3,600 Afghans have traveled the same agonizing route as Taiba since the beginning of 2022, according to tallies in Panama, one of the most perilous sections of the journey. Many of them had partnered with the West for years. So these families are traveling together with children, with elderly people, and it's very dangerous. This article highlights several families, and this is one about a 60-year-old man. Mohammed Rahim, 60, one of the two grandfathers in the family of 17, fared the worst, stopping many times each hour to lay in the dirt. His children knelt beside him, massaging his body back to life. Murmuring prayers, the other Afghans wondered if he would make it. Near the top of La Llorona, Ahmad, 24, an engineer, began to break down. He said, "I am crazy to come here," he yelled, banging his machete into the tree roots, knotting the ground. He tried to enter the United States legally, applying for humanitarian parole in 2021, he said, but he never heard back. Quote, "No one cares about us," he yelled. "We have important people left in Afghanistan and no one cares." Finally, the article closes with some statistics. It says, fewer than 25,000 Afghans have received special visas or refugee status in the United States since the airlifts of 2021. Roughly 52,000 Afghans have applied for a program called humanitarian parole. As of mid-April, just 760 people have been approved. By comparison, more than 300,000 Ukrainians arrived in the United States under various programs in just over a year. And here's a quote at the end from our Afghan evac U.S. Navy veteran. His name is Sean Van Diver. He says, "I don't understand why the world has had their arms so open to Ukrainians and so closed to Afghans." And that is a really important question, and I've heard quotes from many Afghans in news articles and videos, and they say that the world has forgotten us and the United States has forgotten us. But I as an American, I can say that that's not true for everybody, and for those that have not forgotten, we're doing our best to make right the situation. And I always feel like it's not enough. Honestly, it's kind of depressing, and like, I have to take a break sometimes because it really gets too depressing. That Times article and the Guardian article were just heart-wrenching to read. And yeah, I don't know. I still don't know what to do more than what I'm doing.